from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you this Thursday night, the first day of the Biden impeachment inquiry. And again, if you want to weigh in on any of this, we're going to be taking calls throughout the evening, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And today was the first day. It's a big day. A lot of interesting commentary coming out of Capitol Hill from the hearing into the inquiry of whether or not there should be an impeachment on President Joe Biden. And I want to start off with a couple of clips of audio with House Oversight Chairman James Comer, who he basically says that the Biden family literally sold Joe Biden. Listen to this.
Now, what were the Bidens selling to make all this money? Joe Biden himself. Joe Biden is the brand. And Joe Biden showed up at least 24 times with business targets and associates sending signals of access, influence, and power to those prepared to pay for it. The American people demand accountability for this culture of corruption. They demand to know how these schemes have compromised President Biden and threatened our national security. They demand safeguards to be put in place to prevent public officials from selling access to their public office for private gain.
That's, of course, Chairman James Comer, House Oversight Committee. And this is from the hearing just earlier today. According to the House Oversight Committee chair, the hearing will examine the value of the impeachment inquiry, and it's going to present all the evidence to date that's been uncovered by the committee in its investigation into the Biden family's finances. They brought in a number of witnesses who we have some audio of that as well. And the witnesses are going to offer their decades of experience. And one of them was a forensic accountant, financial investigators, all of these very interesting people, former assistant attorney general, and so forth. And it's interesting, right? It's an interesting process because I think the left within the media is trying to make it look like this is a circus, it's a sideshow, similar to what they did to Trump. And I really don't see any similarity here. And I don't think it's a partisan divide or that, I like one guy and not the other. These are real things. Hunter Biden is legitimately being investigated and has been arrested twice or three times by the Department of Justice and is, facing a trial and facing sentence. They don't know what it's going to be yet, but that's where he is. Donald Trump was never arrested while he was in office or prior to. So, I mean, these are apples and oranges comparisons. But I want you to continue listening. This is a little bit longer clip because it has some context in it of Chairman Comer at the opening of the inquiry today, explaining exactly what was uncovered throughout the course of their investigation.
Since assuming our Republican majority in January, the House Oversight and Accountability Committee has uncovered a mountain of evidence revealing how Joe Biden abused his public office for his family's financial gain. For years, President Biden has lied to the American people about his knowledge of and participation in his family's corrupt business schemes. At least 10 times, Joe Biden lied to the American people that he never spoke to his family about their business dealings. He lied by telling the American people that there was an absolute wall between his official government duties and his personal life. Let's be clear. There was no wall. The door was wide open to those who purchased what a business associate described as the Biden brand. Evidence reveals that then Vice President Joe Biden spoke, dined, and developed relationships with his family's foreign business targets. These business targets include foreign oligarchs who sent millions of dollars to his family. It also includes a Chinese national who wired $250,000 to his son. Joe Biden also lied to the American people about his family making money in China. He continued to lie about it even when the House Oversight Committee uncovered bank wires, revealing how the Bidens received millions from Chinese companies with significant ties to Chinese intelligence and the Chinese Communist Party. Just this week, we uncovered 2 additional wires sent to Hunter Biden that originated in Beijing from Chinese nationals. This happened when Joe Biden was running for president of the United States, and Joe Biden's home is listed as the beneficiary address. To date, the House Oversight Committee has uncovered how the Bidens and their associates created over 20 shell companies, most of which were created when Joe Biden was vice president, and raked in over $20 million between 2014 and 2019. We've also identified 9 Biden family members who have participated in or benefited from these shady business schemes.
Now, President Biden's denied any involvement in his son's business dealings. The White House dismissed the hearing today as an evidence-free probe and a political stunt. But the bottom line is the committee has shown that the Bidens alone have brought in over $15 million in their foreign influencing operations, $24 million if you account for their associates' earnings as part of these operations. And this is according to Comer, as it's reported in Fox. And I think this is very interesting. Again, you know, with Trump, they were saying, he's a Russian agent. Rudy Giuliani, he's a Russian agent, right? But there was never a paper trail. There was never 20 shell companies. There was never Giuliani or Trump using the name Robin Ware or the other 4 or 5 aliases that they've now discovered as 4,000 or 5,000 emails from official correspondence that President Biden was corresponding under a fake name while he was vice president. So to me, I don't see it. I see a lot of people out there today trying to dismiss what's going on as some sort of attack, trying to say that, no, this is nothing more than you know, the Republicans making something up. And this is ultimately the president just loving his son. That's really all it is. I think it goes beyond that, right? We've got Representative Jasmine Crockett, 21. And she's at the impeachment inquiry today. And she says that Joe Biden is simply just guilty of loving his son, Hunter. Check this out.
But I will tell you what the president has been guilty of. He has unfortunately been guilty of loving his child unconditionally, and that is the only evidence that they have brought forward. And honestly, I hope and pray that my parents love me half as much as he loves his child. Until they find some evidence, we need to get back to the people's work, which means keeping this government open so that people don't go hungry in the streets of the United States. And I will yield.
Okay, Representative Crockett, people are going hungry in the streets because Joe and Hunter Biden are being investigated for making a bunch of money through the back door. Okay. If that's how it works for you, come from. I don't see the point of the rhetoric. I mean, I understand why they're doing it, but it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense. Anyway, we're going to continue our conversation on the impeachment inquiry. We're also going to reflect on last night's debate. There was still a bunch of things I did not get to cover yesterday, and much, much more to come. We've got issues with crime all over the place. There was this big riot in Philly that I mentioned yesterday, a big mob in Los Angeles. They're all over the place. You've got groups of 100 teenagers just ransacking everything. I want to get into that as well. So don't move a muscle, folks. We continue the conversation straight ahead. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Now, in addition to the ruckus that was going on in Washington, D.C. with the impeachment inquiry, there was ruckus going on in Philadelphia on Tuesday night. And I mentioned it briefly yesterday. I didn't really get into it because I really wanted to take it apart with somebody who understands what urban policing is like. But there were groups of teenagers swarmed into stores in Philadelphia, in Center City, stuffing plastic bags with merchandise, fleeing. Although police made several arrests, it was mayhem. I saw the videos when I was scrolling through Instagram. And by the way, give me a follow at Rich Valdez with an S. And these videos were amazing. It was a girl, or at least what I would identify as a girl, that was taking the video, and she was laughing because the cops were fighting with these guys, trying to get them in handcuffs. They had them on the ground, and the guys were squirming around, and the cops were punching them in the face, and they were fighting back. And it was a melee. There was cops everywhere. There were hundreds of people, and the girls were laughing. They thought this was so humorous. They thought it was the funniest thing ever. And they hit an Apple store around 8 p.m. on Tuesday. They chased the teenagers. You've probably seen this on the news. Just crazy. They were taking iPhones, piles of iPads. More than 100 people who appeared to be teenagers stole from Lululemon's store. That's very expensive athletic wear, by the way. I don't have any, but I should probably get some. It looks pretty cool. And just a ton of things going on. There were videos posted all over social media. People were all wearing hoodies and masks. You couldn't see their faces. And just grabbing everything that they could take and running out the store. And cops are running around, just trying to catch. It was just absolute bedlam. And it was a real flash mob style ransacking of just one business after another. And a security guard was assaulted at the Foot Locker that they entered. This is the definition of organized crime. And I want to get to the bottom of it. I want to get some reaction from former chief of police in the city of Detroit, James Craig. Welcome back, sir.
Hey, thanks, Rich. Glad to be back here with you. I'm here to talk about this madness that's going on today. It's just unbelievable. But let me start out by applauding the great work by the Philadelphia Police Department. I think out of 80 to 100 suspects, they arrested 50. But you know what the real problem is, Rich?
What's that?
What's
Chief?
that prosecutor? What's the prosecutor going to do? They got one of the more
Larry
liberal,
Krasner.
woke. Krasner's one of the most woke prosecutors in the bunch, and so hopefully he's going to do what's right. But we'll just have to wait and see. Because this is the kind of madness that's going to continue. We saw what happened out in California not too long ago. And it's real sad. The police officers are doing their job. They're understaffed, still don't really feel supported in many places.
Mm-hmm.
You got woke prosecutors, but here's a little added bonus. You got some of these corporations that are contributing to the problem. I know you talked about Lululemon, and you said, hey, I'm going to go get some Lululemon. Let me tell you, you wouldn't catch me in a Lululemon right now. You know why?
What do you know that I don't know?
I'm going to share something with you. This happened some months ago. Apparently, a flash mob type situation happened at a Lululemon. I forget the city. And a couple of the employees engaged the suspects. And I guess it's against policy that if someone comes in looting, just let them do it. And so because they tried to stop it, I don't know if one or both lost their job. And that's shameful.
I remember that story. That's horrible. And it happened at a Home Depot or a Lowe's as well.
Yeah, at Lowe's. But I remember the Lululemon one. I said, well, I'll never go there again. The management can't support their employees. They put their own safety on the line. And I get it if it's for the whole notion of, well, we don't want our employees to put themselves in unnecessary risk.
Sure.
Or are more concerned about being sued. So this whole business, it has to be a collaborative effort. Everybody's got to be on the same sheet. The police are going to do their job, but the police have to be supported by the prosecutors. And if the prosecutors are not going to charge, then what's the message? The message is clear.
Chief, that's an excellent point. Right. There's no consequences. And in addition to that, it seems to me that these policies have become way more relaxed. It almost seems when these stores take a loss like this, they get to put it on their balance sheet, and most of the time they're insured if they're going to file a claim. And I think the word has gotten out. It's almost like they're like, all right, look, if you're going to rob us. What are we going to do? We're just going to close another bunch of stores. It seems like corporations aren't taking their job seriously. The prosecutors aren't taking their job seriously.
They're not taking their job. And I'm gonna give you an added bonus. Some of these mayors, these woke mayors, these politicians who do nothing, say nothing, and pretty much accept it as, well, it's just the way things are. Well, what they don't realize, this is an economic situation. So Nordstrom's, after many years, pulled out of San Francisco. That's not acceptable. And so you take this attitude, well, okay, it happened. And then the CVS's they're pulling out.
Yeah. Target just closed 9 stores, including Harlem. Same reason, shoplifting.
Exactly. And so the issue, it comes down to one basic thing. It hurts people, particularly people who live in vulnerable communities who need these stores to get the various sundries that they might need. So they close them down. It certainly hurts the tax base in the city.
Of course. Everybody that worked in those stores has to find a new job.
They got to find new jobs. And then when you talk about tourism, I wouldn't go to San Francisco. San Francisco is one of the places you want to go visit. I'm not going there. Look, I'm in Detroit. I'd rather stay in Detroit and vacation than go to Chicago right now. And I used to like to go to Chicago. Chicago, you got Miracle Mile, you got some of the best shopping. And the last time I went to Chicago, I don't know what it's like now because it's been many months, but many of the high-end stores boarded up and off-duty police officers working in the various stores. Is that what you want to deal with? And so they're destroying these iconic cities.
Yep, the economy, the community. It's horrible.
And the weak leadership, the mayors, are just sitting back and some of the police chiefs who go along just so they can keep the job, and I'm drawing back on, because a lot of this all started in 2020.
Yeah.
And I oftentimes like to make the statement that when you look at all the cities that burned in 2020, Detroit was one of the rare few major cities that did not burn for a reason.
Good job.
And you don't hear about the mass looting going on in Detroit even now because the tone was set. Now I'm hoping that things don't dramatically change and Detroit becomes like some of these other places. But as it stands right now, it's not happening in Detroit. The tone was set. Detroit has stood alongside with the police as our partners and said, we're not going to tolerate this.
Folks, we're on with James Craig, former Detroit police chief, and we're going to talk about why is there so much crime? Okay, prosecutors aren't doing their jobs, but why are people out of control? We're going to get into that next with the chief. Stick with us, 833-482-5337 if you want to weigh in, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't move a muscle. We're coming right back. I'm Rich Valdez.
Across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And we're on with James Craig, former Detroit City Police Chief. And I want to go to the phones. We've got a couple of calls here. Let's go to Mark in Akron, Ohio, WNIR. Mark, you're on with Rich Valdez and our guest, James Craig, former Detroit Chief of Police.
All right, Rich, my friend. In my opinion, the stores need to get more security. these people, even in my state, Rich, they take backpacks in the little, or not little, but clothing stores, and they put their stuff in because the alarms can't. I guess they can't see through or go through, detect the backpack with clothes in it with the labels on them. They don't trigger those door alarms. And, you know, a lot of them are drug addicts, and they sell that stuff for drugs, their clothes, and to the drug dealers.
Mm-hmm.
But this organized stuff like they did in San Francisco is unbelievable to me. But it doesn't surprise me, Rich. You're endangering innocent people, customers that might be in there, and traumatizing them. Okay, that's traumatizing to see 100 or gangs of people just coming in and grabbing stuff, you know, and running, right?
Sure. Absolutely. Mark, thank you for your point. I
and,
appreciate that.
You're out of, hey, Mark, you're out of Akron, and, you know, I was the chief of police out in Cincinnati, not too far away. You know, I got to tell you, one of the sad realities is some of these places will hire security guards and basically immobilize them. They're just there. They're there to do nothing but to act as deterrent. And if they engage them, like I was given the example of Lululemon, when the employees tried to take action, look, that's their job. They don't want that done. They kind of they're tolerant of it. And so there's got to be a unified effort with local political leaders, certainly the police department, the prosecutors, but also the business owners. Everybody's got to be at the table. And this cannot be acceptable. That's the only way we're going to solve this thing. But most importantly, these young people that are engaged in this organized activity need to know one thing and one thing certain: consequences. If there are no consequences, you saw the Philadelphia video, and the organizer, she's in the background laughing. I'm so happy they arrested her. I just hope they charge her.
Me too. You know, Chief, I'm looking at this, and you read my mind. The one you're talking about is Deja Blackwell, and she's now on social media saying she needs a welcome home gift because she wants to treat herself, and she's raising money so that she can hire a lawyer and telling people to send her money to her Cash App. And I look at this and I think, how did young people get this brazen? Like, why is it somehow societally acceptable to just go and steal and do things like this?
Well, you know, I've been in the business 44 years.
Oh, I know.
And I can tell you, I started in 77 in Detroit, then Los Angeles in 1981. And I would tell you, that was not acceptable. They understood. When the LAPD showed up, they knew it was about the business. When I was Detroit police officer, same thing. And so, but then a lot of it has to do with parenting. What are the parents doing? And I recognize there are a lot of other factors. I mean, you look at our educational systems today, K through 12, and most of urban areas across the country, they're horrible. They're failing. They're quick to want to, you know, indoctrinate these kids about gender, changing their gender, or being victims, but they don't want to teach them basic academia like reading and math. They don't want to do that. So, of course, imagine a child who can't read by the time they're in the third grade. Some kind of way they make it into high school, they still can't read, they drop out, and we know what the statistics say. When you drop out, there's a greater probability that you're going to be incarcerated. And so those are factors as well. And so our education is messed up. And then you get these weak politicians that want to throw money at it. Oh, let's give them bag lunches every day, which I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but how about we put priority on educating these young people? And would that make a difference? Absolutely, it would make a difference.
Folks, are on with Chief James Craig, former Detroit chief of police. He's been in the game for a long time.
I got to tell you something, Rich. You having some bad luck on me right now. I'm a Lions fan, and the Lions are playing Green Bay right now. And we were up substantially before you called, and now Green Bay has scored like 2 or 3 touchdowns. And
don't blame me. I'm blaming Philly.
Yeah.
By the way, there was 2 nights of looting, right? It happened on Tuesday night. It happened again last night. 2 nights of back-to-back looting, and it's happening in California. It's happening all over the place. We're going to continue this conversation straight ahead with Chief James Craig, former Detroit police chief, and your calls as well. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
So we've got 52 people that have been arrested after looting in Philadelphia 2 nights in a row. Crazy stuff. 52 people. They broke into liquor stores. They broke into clothing stores. They broke into everything they could. Windows are shattered. Those rolling steel doors, those metal gates bashed in. It looks like a war zone. We're on with former Detroit chief of police, James Craig. And I want to quickly go to Steve in Atlanta, Georgia, WGKA. Steve, you're on with Chief Craig and me. Go right ahead.
Good evening, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I live in Atlanta, and here they announced, it was about a year ago, they announced that they found out in the city of Atlanta that 1,000 people are responsible, just 1,000 people are responsible for 50%, half of all the crime. We're talking carjackings, everything you can think of, the entire gamut. And then here recently, about 2 weeks ago, I learned it's in one of those places where they have that $900 or $1,000 threshold, where it's considered a misdemeanor.
Oh yeah, like
George Soros. So I think it was San Francisco. They have those George Soros-backed prosecutors, right?
Yeah.
Like DeSantis got rid of one of them, right? He got rid of one of them in his state who wasn't actually doing his job. I wish other governors would do that. But anyway, this place, I think it was L.A. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was this place, what we're talking about now. But
right.
They announced, it was about 2 weeks ago, so that couldn't have been the case. They announced that 400 people were responsible for all of the burglaries, these ransacking of the retail establishments. Just 400 people. And then the person who was talking about it said something like that made sense to me. It's their job.
Yeah,
you're right. It's their job. And you know what we really need to, Rich, I think I want to call them something more than what I said earlier.
Sure.
Especially when you look at what happened in Philadelphia. These are domestic terrorists. I mean,
Wow.
Not only are they engaging in retail theft, but they're destroying businesses. This is serious, and it needs to be treated as such. And we have to make a statement. But again, you got to have folks in those positions, those leadership positions, that have the wherewithal to say, you know what, we're not putting up with this. I grew up in this, but this never happened. This would have never happened. And, when I decided to retire from law enforcement, I didn't retire because I wanted to. I mean, I wanted to go to the next level and certainly continue to be a public servant as a governor. And, now I'm on the brink, and I'm not announcing it on your show, but I'm very close to making an announcement for a run for U.S. Senate, because I'm sick and tired. I'm not one of these people that can sit on the sidelines and complain. People count on people who are elected to leadership positions to take action, to solve problems. And sadly, these people do it for other reasons, be it ego, and it's just mind-boggling. Give you an example. AOC out of New York.
All out crazy.
She makes a comment about what they got to eat. Well, last time I looked, are we eating iPhones and iPads? I mean, what are you talking about? They got to eat. So it's okay to steal, unless what you're trying to say is they could turn it around and sell it on the open market, so they could. They're not doing it for food.
Right. You can steal the food too.
Well, they do that too.
Yeah.
And so just a mess. And I mean, even the way the migrant situation is being handled out of New York, you want to call yourself a sanctuary city, and now all of a sudden the mayor is whining, a former cop. He's whining, oh, woe is us. Will someone help us? And he's dealing with a fraction of the problem that they're dealing with out in Texas. And so he's whining. He needs help. And then he wants to now consider putting them in parks, putting them in hotels. I mean, who are these folks? And then who do they represent? And, having been in law enforcement as long as I was, I talked to the people that I served. They didn't want and were not accepting of violence and just look the other way. They wanted the police to do their jobs, do it ethically, do it constitutionally, but they wanted you to do your job. And what I see happening today, something's got to change. And all I can say to your listeners, we got an election coming up, and we need to vote people in who believe in law and order, and we can turn this thing around. Because what's going on right now is unacceptable. When you got a president that will look into a camera and say the borders are secure, or others, the borders are secure, but yet you got the cartels coming in who are enemy combatants to our country. They should be treated like terrorists. That's right, I said it. The Mexican cartels are terrorists. They need to be treated as such. 200 plus people are dying a day from fentanyl. And I don't even want to use the word overdose. We're talking about poisoning. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for it. This is China creates the precursor, and these cartels, aka terrorists, bring it into our country. And what is the administration doing? What kind of conversation are we having with Mexico? I mean, we just say, oh, well, it's not important. That's the real problem is an absence of leadership. It's the absence of leadership.
Or the corruption of it.
You have to set the tone. Exactly. You have to set the tone.
Well said, Chief. Folks, that's Chief James Craig, former Detroit police chief, who says he's not making a formal announcement today, but strongly considering a run for the U.S. Senate in Michigan. And I wish you luck with that, Chief. When you're ready to make the announcement, we'd love to have you back on. Let everybody know how they could follow you and keep in touch with everything that you're doing.
Go to @ChiefJamesCraig.com. That's my X or former Twitter.
Right.
You can go there. We'll be making announcements on there. I have the good opportunity and fortunate to do a lot of national news and talk about many of these issues. But as soon as we're ready to launch, it'll be out there. And I'm looking for the support because we need strong leadership, people that can make decisions. And this has got to stop because we are weak, not only on the national stage, but the world stage. Mm-hmm. China, Russia, Iran, They're laughing at us. They're laughing at us.
Try looting in Iran, right?
Exactly.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. Godspeed to you. Good luck with everything. Hope to have you back really soon.
I look forward to it, Rich. You have a great one.
You too. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief James Craig, a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. And we're going to get back to your calls momentarily. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. To the phones we go, to your calls. Let's go to Kalispell, Montana, KOFI, and check in with Kim. Kim, you're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
I'm sorry I missed the segment or all of it. I was trying to listen to the debate debacle.
Sure. What's on your mind?
My mind is, did the officer, the chief, offer any kind of insight on why this is happening? Why are these people doing this?
Yeah, what he alluded to, what I got from it was that when people start to realize that they can do whatever they want because there's a lack of consequences, then they're going to push the limits. And when you have prosecutors that are what I like to call pro-crime, progressive prosecutors that are coddling criminals, they take advantage of the situation. They know that they could go shopping for free. When you have mayors and councils that are making local ordinances that say that it's no longer a felony unless it's over $1,000 instead of $500, people know I can steal up to $1,000 worth of stuff and nobody's going to do anything. And when they know that these corporations are going to have security guards that won't react, or employees that are told to stand down and not try to stop a shoplifter or a looter, then it's a recipe for disaster.
Down to those people's moral compass, which is really off whack.
Oh, grossly lacking in the morality department for sure. I agree with that. And I think we also have, with the videos that I saw from Pennsylvania, the Philly stuff, there was, 15 or 20 cops that were arriving at the scene, and no lie, 100 or 120 people running in and out of stores with their hands full of as much as they could grab, with enough people waiting around to videotape all of this because they have no shame. And the cops would grab every single person that was at arm's reach and drag them down to the ground to try to handcuff them. Some of them got up and ran away. Others they got. Apparently out of the 100 or so that they believed participated in this, they caught 52 of them, which is great. And there was probably another 15 or 20 people that were standing by doing nothing, just videotaping it, laughing, egging on the looters and laughing at the cops. It was a really disgusting display of humanity, in my opinion. And it's mind-boggling. None of us are the same age. The chief says he's been on the job for 44 years. I'm only 45 years old. And I could tell you, neither of us has seen anything like this in our lifetime. It's absolutely shocking, Kim.
So after the Watts riot. But you know what, Rich? We weren't raised that way.
Yeah, that's the truth. During the break, I was telling my producer, I said, I was like, sometimes I feel like a dope. Everybody's out there getting a new iPad. Here I am for my kid's birthday. My ex-wife bought her one. I think it was $600. And I was like, we could have went to Philly and got one for free. Then I thought, what would my parents think about that? There was something about honor and respect when I was being raised. And that seems to be lost today on these particular folks. Kim, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. We're coming right back. We're going to continue our talks on the debate and more, plus the Biden impeachment inquiry. Don't go anywhere. Susan Crabtree joins us next.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you Thursday night. If you want to join the conversation, 833-482-5337. We're talking the impeachment inquiry, some debate stuff, other news of the day, and let me tell you, look at these headlines here. Republicans expose damning evidence of Biden corruption during first impeachment inquiry hearing. Then, Congressman Matt Gaetz says Speaker McCarthy can't remain GOP Speaker if he makes a deal with Democrats for temporary funding. This could be a shutdown. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. Somebody's got to stick to their guns. Fascinating to see what's coming out of Washington. Then you got some newly revealed text showing that Hunter Biden was whining that all of his money was gone and he was looking for help from his dad. Then you've got a memo coming out of the House of Representatives showing that the Biden family and their associates brought in more than $24 million from foreign business dealings. Now, again, just because you're making money overseas doesn't mean that you're a criminal. It's when you lie and you peddle your influence that'll blur the line a little bit. And I want to get into a lot of this stuff. There's so much to discuss. But the hearing today had several witnesses, and I want to bring in a veteran who understands the landscape, because Susan Crabtree is the White House and national political correspondent for RealClearPolitics, and she knows what's going on because she keeps her finger on the pulse. Susan Crabtree, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me again, Rich.
You bet. It's my pleasure. And I want just to set the stage a little bit. It was a hearing, so obviously there were witnesses that were giving their testimony with questioning from the various members of the Oversight Committee. And there's a clip from Professor Jonathan Turley that I want you to give a quick listen to, because I think he makes a very interesting point. Listen to this.
I want to go to those three things, Professor Turley. False statements, influence peddling scheme, and Joe Biden might have benefited. Let's do the third one first. Is a benefit to your family, can a benefit to your family be a benefit to you?
It is. There's been a repeated statements that you need to show that President Biden accepted direct money in order for this to constitute a benefit, even under criminal cases that deal with bribery, extortion, and the Hobbs Act. The courts actually have rejected that. They've said that money going to family members is in fact a benefit, and I don't really see any legal basis for that. Obviously, the strongest case is if you have a direct payment. But this idea that you can have millions going to a politician's family and that's not a benefit, I think is pretty fallacious.
Susan Crabtree, you hear the professor say that, no matter how you slice it, the fact that you're not enriching yourself by enriching members of your family seems like a fake, phony, fraud argument in his opinion. What's your initial reaction to what happened today in the Capitol?
Well, first of all, I felt like there was a media blackout of the event. And so you only had a few, and it almost seemed like it was agreed upon because I regularly cover these events, and I wasn't there because I was coming back from the Republican debate in California. I'm going to the California Republican Convention on Friday, where Trump will speak and DeSantis will speak and several others. But I've heard from people who were in the hearing room that Politico wasn't there, the New York Times wasn't there, the Washington Post wasn't there. Wow. People like the Washington Times were there, the Washington Examiner was there, Fox News was there. So what's going on here? Why are we why is the media world treating this impeachment inquiry with such disdain or lack of enthusiasm for covering it? Yeah. This is the same sort of attitude we've seen from the liberal media, or you want to call them the mainstream media, to a lot of these Hunter Biden problems. Initially, working. I've never seen such a lack of curiosity during the campaign itself when the laptop appeared.
Yeah, I feel like it's a repeat of the laptop.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you had Tony Bubalinski, a business associate, coming forward, and these New York Post had the emails and all the text. Well, it was actually the text because we had them too, many of them. And they were being, Twitter was saying and Facebook was saying that it was misinformation, and that so it really repressed all the information from really becoming legitimate in the views of the public. And now we have the same sort of attitude. That being said, there was a lot of sensitive issues and investigations and details that have been coming out from the House Oversight and Accountability Committee in the last few weeks, and we saw a good summary of them. I wouldn't say there was anything blockbuster new, but it was it was the initial hearing to set the stage, and it was just interesting to me that you had the Chairman Comer saying we've uncovered a mountain of evidence revealing how Joe Biden abused his office for his family's financial gains. And we had, like you said, he has identified, his committee has identified 9 members of the Biden family who have participated, and some estimates put it up over, they say $24 million for sure, but some estimates put it up over $50 million when you include Jim Biden. And James Comer today said that he was going to try to subpoena Jim Biden because he's largely flown under the radar because he did not happen to leave his laptop behind, and so all of the material is not pointing directly. They don't have exact emails and texts about him, but they know he was involved. And some emails and texts have come out in the last few days saying that he would take care of Hunter Biden when Hunter Biden was going to rehab, and that he would take care of the business and would deal with his brother, Joe Biden, the then vice president, while Hunter was in rehab, so everything would be under control while he was gone.
Unbelievable. And I tell you, to make a crass analogy, it's as if the Biden family are pimping Joe Biden and whatever influence he's had for who knows how long in his political career. And Chairman Comer alluded to that with a short statement. I want you to hear this. I'd like to get your reaction. Listen to this.
Now, what were the Bidens selling to make all this money? Joe Biden himself. Joe Biden is the brand. And Joe Biden showed up at least 24 times with business targets and associates sending signals of access, influence, and power to those prepared to pay for it. The American people demand accountability for this culture of corruption. They demand to know how these schemes have compromised President Biden and threatened our national security. They demand safeguards to be put in place to prevent public officials from selling access to their public office for private gain.
And, Susan Crabtree, this is not a simple case of getting a couple of gold bars like Gold Bar Bob did. This is, continuing where we see a constant appeasement of our enemies or adversaries, whatever camp you're in, like China, and this bending over backwards for Ukraine, which I think we should help Ukraine. But it seems like it's an unending amount of supplies and money that are going to Ukraine with little help in the war. And it's shocking.
Well, it's really, to me, it was really shocking when the previous administration and Secretary of State Pompeo went to great lengths and to duly research this Uyghur genocide that was going on in China. And they finally came out and declared it a genocide before leaving office. And here, when you had the transition take place, the Biden team seemed like they were dragging their heels a little bit in maintaining that declaration. And then when members of Congress who were outraged, this is 1 million people being forced into labor camps, just unbelievable allegations that have been piling up for years now, documented by the Wall Street Journal, a forced sterilization of women in the Uyghur community, and even organ harvesting, just like they did with the Falun Gong members before them.
Right.
You have all these allegations, and the Biden administration is dragging its heels for months on the Uyghur Labor Protection Act, that would deliver sanctions. It is delivering sanctions now because there was so much commotion in Congress that Biden was forced to sign it. But companies like, even Coca-Cola, Nike, other big U.S. Chamber of Commerce type of entities that have business and factories over in China that may have had used forced labor were pushing back on this bill, and Biden was reluctant to sign it. The problem that we have here is not proof yet that there's a link, although people do like to talk about the prosecutor that was looking into Burisma and Joe Biden. That they point to that as a smoking gun. But Ukraine is so corrupt that it's hard for anyone who really knows the country to decipher that. The layperson, just the American citizen who doesn't follow every jot and tittle. But in terms of China, it's very difficult. You cannot, even the question in your mind that there may be a conflict of interest here, when we're talking about placing sanctions on individuals and companies that are participating in a genocide.
Yeah,
it's just mind-boggling.
And what I thought was equally as crazy was during the debates, Biden was, I think it was a CNN debate, and they asked him this question pretty sternly, and to their credit, and his answer was, look, people are different cultures do different things. And I thought, different cultures do different things. Is that the excuse for a genocide? I've never heard such a thing. And, it was a flash in the pan. And then he came into office and followed that same approach, and he's continued to do that. And it's just it's alarming. So when somebody accuses you of taking money and enriching your family, and it's the same people giving you the money that you're really turning a blind eye to and not really enforcing anything, you have to think where there's smoke, there's fire. But we'll see where the facts lead us with this. Folks, we are on with Susan Crabtree. She is the White House and national political correspondent for Real Clear Politics. She was with Washington Examiner before that and Washington Free Beacon. She's a veteran of this business and knows her stuff. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the debates and everything else that's going on. She's got some really good articles, too. If we have time, I'm going to squeeze one in about the USAID power play on religious engagement. That's interesting. USAID is always involved in just about everything going on in Ukraine. So we'll get into that as well. Don't move a muscle. It's Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
But we need law and order back everywhere. We need law and order back in our suburbs. People are threatened there. We need it in our rural areas. People feel threatened there. And we need it in Washington, D.C. also. And Donald Trump should be here to answer for that, but he's not. And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight, not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
Well, that was the level of intellectual discourse going on at the debate last night. Now, look, I'm only looking at clips. And I believe Donald Trump was not watching the debate because he was giving a speech to auto workers, a really pretty heavy on policy speech, unlike what I saw thus far. But I don't want to sell them short. So I want to bring Susan Crabtree back in. She's the national politics and White House correspondent for Real Clear Politics. And Susan Crabtree, what was your take? You were covering this debate. You were in California. Was this devoid of any real policy and intellectual discourse, or am I selling them short?
Well, there was some, but it was hard to discern at times because they were speaking over each other so much. It was all this fractious bickering that was taking place. Really was center stage was what people took away from the debate. You had a lot of different people trying new techniques, right? Nikki Haley was doubling down, and she got a little desperate in the way she approached it, because she was surging from going on the offense against Vivek Ramaswamy in the first debate. And she got a little bump out of that, even ahead of DeSantis in New Hampshire, in the New Hampshire primary polls. So she thought she'd double down on that, but it ended up looking a little desperate. You had Vivek Ramaswamy even trying to get a little mea culpa in and say, I know that I'm young and ambitious and maybe a little bit obnoxious, basically. And but I know I need to win your trust. But then at the end of the night, he was so disgusted with all the attacks on him by the other candidates, because he went on the attack first by saying in the first debate that they were all bought and paid for, basically sellouts to special interests. And they took, the other candidates took great offense to this newcomer to the stage, to the presidential arena. And he didn't even shake their hands. They all shook hands at the end of the debate. Vivek stormed off. So much for the new Vivek, winning your trust, and he's chastened by the experience. DeSantis, I felt like he didn't have any breakout moment. That's what he really needed last night. But he did come across as very stable and statesmanlike. And if you're looking for an alternative to Donald Trump, that's mostly what people complain about in the Republican Party about Donald Trump. Not about his policies. Most of his policies were very popular, but it's his personality problems, his imposing manner, his schoolyard taunts, and at the end of the debate, DeSantis came across as he was the one that was not willing to say, "I'm going to write down." He stopped the whole question about who they would vote off the island by saying it was disrespectful for the other candidates for them to participate in that and responding to that question. And he quoted Reagan. Finally, after all this bickering during the debate and casting aspersions on one another, at the very end, they got back to the Reagan 11th commandment, thou shalt not speak ill of another Republican. And he was the one to bring that up and to really drive it home. I think he came across as a workhorse, not a show horse. That's always been his problem. He's not really good at these debates. He's a little wooden. He likes his rehearsed statements, and he's not good on just in an impromptu situation. But he is, sort of respectful of his peers. He does come across as very calm and reassuring, and he did strike the notes that Republicans like to hear on. When it comes to China, when it comes to crime, and when it comes to the border, especially the border.
Susan Crabtree, the music means they're kicking me out of here, so I thank you for joining us. Excellent analysis. Got to have you back. You've got some great articles I'd like to discuss. Godspeed to you.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. I certainly appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you. Folks, there is more to come straight ahead. We're going to talk about some crazy stuff. You don't want to miss it, and we'll be right back. All right, America, welcome back. And there's a story that I saw today in the New York Post, and I said, this is absolute crazy. And I honestly could not think of another person to work through this article with than Dr. Carole Lieberman. And you guys know her. She's been on a number of times. She's a medical doctor, master's in public health. She's known as the terrorist therapist. She's terrific. She's been an expert witness time and time again. But I want you to hear this headline because it's a shocking one. It's in the New York Post today. And it explains how a New York City gun arrest uncovered a huge pedophile satanic cult. That's the headline. The arrest of a Queens man on gun charges 2 years ago led federal authorities to the discovery of a satanic pedophile extortion cult that targets minors over the internet. Shocking. Investigators uncovered the heinous group. It's called 764. While investigating disturbing social media posts that were made by Angel Almeida. 23-year-old who was busted in November of 2021 and charged with being a convicted felon in possession of a firearm. In February, the Brooklyn federal prosecutors announced they had filed a superseding indictment against Almeida, adding charges related to child exploitation and enticement of minors. Prior to Almeida's arrest, the FBI followed anonymous tips that allegedly linked him to social media accounts containing vile posts about child sex abuse, including one Instagram profile at necropedocell that featured a photo of what appeared to be a child bound and gagged. A post on another of Almeida's alleged Instagram profiles showed him posing with ammunition strapped to his chest in front of a black flag bearing the logo of the Order of Nine Angels, O9A, which prosecutors described as a worldwide Satanist group which embraces elements of neo-Nazism and white supremacy. Again, this is another brown white supremacist here with this satanic stuff on. And when the authorities searched Almeida's home, they allegedly found hundreds of files containing child sex abuse material on 4 different devices, as well as books related to O9A and Satanism. Crazy. And they also found a blood covenant, an O9A drawing of a hooded figure surrounded by the group's symbols, smeared with what appears to be actual blood. So earlier this month, the FBI issued a public notice about 764, which they call a violent online group that's deliberately targeting minor victims on publicly available messaging platforms to extort them into recording or live streaming acts of self-harm and producing child sexual abuse material. Absolutely insane, this stuff. So let's go to our expert here. Dr. Carole Lieberman, welcome back.
Hi, thank you.
I chose you because you know crazy and you know crime. And very few have the expertise that you have. None, in my opinion, can match what you offer. And I'm still shocked at how they catch a guy with a gun. The next thing you know, there's a Satan thing and a child sex ring. It's just insane. What say you?
Well, yes, children are really becoming victims in so many different ways these days. They are so vulnerable to, there was just something that came out in the news today about kids and phones, and about how many hours a day they spend on phones, even in class. And, the dangers being that what they're on include, talking with strangers, getting targeted by strangers, and of course, obviously to be up to no good. But, this combination of pedophilia and Satanism and guns, I mean, it's like every day we get more depraved, more people don't know what to do with themselves anymore.
Yeah, it seems like there's too much time on people's hands, and they're just, an idle mind is the devil's playground, so to speak.
Yes. Well, I think also people are feeling it's this new normal that has never really come about, the light at the end of the tunnel, and this feeling that, a lack of hope, a feeling of helplessness and a lack of hope. And so people are, and as they see other people in the news doing crazy things, then that lowers the bar. Each day, when, like, for example, you're reading this and, oh, my God, this is crazy. Yes. But tomorrow it's going to be less crazy, for those people who also read it. And so they're going to think, oh, well, I can do this too.
It almost becomes like we're all becoming desensitized to the most vile things ever.
Yes.
Whether we're watching them, observing them, or these people doing them. Now, is it prevalent from your experience for people? I'm going to go out on a limb and say this guy has some sort of mental illness. Is that fair to say, or do sane people do this?
Well, no, I think it's sane to say that he has some kind of mental illness. First of all, probably he was sexually abused as a child, maybe obviously also probably physically abused, raised by parents who did not who does not convey the finer points of life. I don't mean like economically, but I mean just
Values and morals.
civility.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, let me ask this question, and maybe you have a response, maybe you don't. But I know that there are terror cells and gangs and all sorts of bad groups, I'm going to call them.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the days, it was the Taliban, or before that, it was ISIS, or after that, it was ISIS. Before that, it was Al-Qaeda. And there were Americans that eventually came on board with some of these. It might have been few and far between, but they did, because they bought onto the message for whatever their motivation was. But I feel like, I don't know if this is a concoction of the media or just something I'm noticing, but I'm seeing more and more people being labeled as neo-Nazi or white supremacist that are Hispanic. And I've never met a Hispanic that was a white supremacist, and I've been Hispanic my whole life. So I'm shocked at this, and I'm wondering, is this just is how do we look at this? Is this people, are they recruiting more, or is it people that are so broken that they're just looking for a place to belong?
Well, I think both of those. I think people are feeling so broken. They're looking for a purpose in their life. They're looking for a place to belong. I mean, the reason why kids join gangs is because, they have a horribly dysfunctional family at home. Sometimes their family kicks them out, or sometimes they're just, not paying any attention to them. They look for a family outside their home. And the family that they find most frequently is, a gang. And, in a way, you can look at these other kinds of groups as gangs too. And these people just looking for love, really, looking to belong, looking for love. And I think we're feeling so detached from each other. And a lot of that had to do with the lockdowns and masks and 6 feet and all of that. And we're still having trouble kind of forming relationships again, feeling close to people, because for 2 years we were told that people are dangerous. You don't want to get close to people, or they're going to
6 feet,
give
6
you
feet.
a deadly disease.
No mask, they'll kill you. Yeah. I have and you're right. And I think a lot of people are getting accustomed to that life. And I took a friend of mine who had surgery on his foot to the doctor the other day, and they were like, stop, you have to wear a mask. And I was like, really? We're doing that again? They're doing that again in a lot of medical facilities. So it seems like it's making a comeback. But irrespective of that, as an individual with ADHD, I know for years I've procrastinated with things, and I've only been able to move to do things when it's like the building is burning, let's go, and I understand that to be a dopamine rush, and that's what gets me going. Now, using that as an example, are these people that are mentally ill in whatever way and coming from a broken past, is this idea of child sex abuse, killing people, looting, whatever their outrageous behavior be, is this a result of something similar like my procrastination, where they're getting off on a dopamine rush, or is it bigger than that?
I think it's a little more complicated than that. But, to go back to what you were talking about before, the idea of whether there are more white supremacists, or the definition is getting looser, so they're including, all kinds of people. I think that is true, and I think that it's kind of like the word terrorist. Terrorist, like, let's say when 9/11 happened, terrorist meant radical Islamist terrorists. It was the radical Islamists who were terrorists. And now the word is thrown around so that PTA parents are called terrorists, and January 6th trespassers are called terrorists. And, it's sort of the effort, in a sense, is to make it lose all meaning. And that's kind of the same thing with white supremacists, where it's anybody with a tattoo. It's just kind of, it's just kind of gotten, bent out of shape, just too inclusive, so that it really means it's really hard to, and it's important to have these meetings. It's just as important to have radical Islamists be named as terrorists as it is to know who white supremacists really are.
Excellent point. And I'm going to pause here. I want to jump into something else, and we'll do it right after the pause. But there was a story that I covered here a couple of nights ago about a girl named Sidney Powell that murdered her parents, or her mom. And it was over the most bizarre circumstances. And I'd love for you to weigh in on that, because I'm wondering if that was
Absolutely.
a dopamine
I know
rush.
I know that case backwards and forwards. It really got me going.
Me too. I was shocked. And I do this every day. And I don't get shocked every day because you kind of get used to this stuff. But that was a shocker. So, folks, we're on with Dr. Carole Lieberman. She's a psychiatrist, medical doctor, and she's known as the terrorist therapist. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So a while back, a girl named Sidney Powell had flunked out of college, and the college called. Her mom was on the phone with the college. The girl wigs out and grabs a frying pan, bashes her mother to death, stabs her 31 times, then stages a fake robbery to kind of cover it up, and eventually gets caught. She goes to jail, and she was just sentenced. And it's bizarre, and she got 15 years to life. But the whole story to me is just so outlandish. I'm looking at a picture of this girl, and I think she's 22 or something like that, maybe 24, whatever the case is. But she was, I think, a teenager while it happened. And this is a bizarre story, and we did talk about it the other night, but I want to get the expert opinion of my favorite psychiatrist, Dr. Carole Lieberman, and you guys know her as America's psychiatrist. And Dr. Carole Lieberman, what do you think about this story? I mean, this is crazy.
This story really got me going for so many reasons. I'm often on court TV, commenting on various cases.
Sure.
In this case, so I watched a lot of this case, and it was driving me crazy. She wasn't crazy. I mean, at the time of the offense, her
right, and that was her defense.
Right, her defense was not guilty by reason of insanity. Now, she definitely has psychological problems, no question. She may have borderline personality traits at least, but the reason why it was really disturbing, one of the reasons, is because the defense attorney had 3 psychologists testify that she was schizophrenic, and therefore she had a psychotic break at the time that she killed her mother. And because they were saying that, so everyone said that she and her mother were very close. And so the only reason why she would have killed her would be if she was crazy. She would have had to have been crazy to kill her. Well, that doesn't make any sense because, just because we didn't know the motive, I mean, one possible motive is that she didn't want her mother to find out that she had flunked out of school long before she ever told her parents that. She was hiding it for a long time. And she was staying at the college. She tried to stay there for as long as she could and so on. She was afraid to tell her parents that she flunked out. And there has to have been a reason. She did very well in high school. So there was some reason why she wasn't doing so well in college. She, the first 2 semesters, she did worse and worse as we got to the 3rd semester. So there was something, at one time that she did have an alcohol, at least one occasion when she had to go to the emergency room for alcohol. Oh, wow. But, but that didn't really come out that was an ongoing problem. It certainly could have been. It could have been just that she was, she felt she had been protected when she was home and she went to college and she didn't really know how to adjust. It could have been something relatively simple. But But anyway, before her mother could find out the truth, that's when she started, hitting her over the head and so on. But what really got me disturbed was that, first of all, psychologists do not generally have as much training and as much experience with schizophrenics, because the treatment for schizophrenia is a combination of psychotherapy and medication. So it's psychiatrists who generally treat schizophrenics. And they were saying all these things about how they gave her all these tests, and therefore the tests showed that she must have been, not guilty. She must have been unable to see the wrongfulness of her acts when she killed her mother. I mean, first of all, that was another thing that really bothered me. You can't. They were trying to say that the tests are the be all and end all. And now,
Dr. Carole, I want to pause you real quick because they're telling me I have to take a break, but I want to hear about the tests and your critique of the tests and their phony baloney stuff. So this is getting good. Folks, we're coming right back with Dr. Carole Lieberman, America's psychiatrist. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. We're on with Dr. Carole Lieberman. Her website, expertwitnessforensic.psychiatrist.com. Dr. Carole, you were telling us about the tests.
Yes, I just was saying that you can't just go by tests. In other words, whether you're a psychiatrist or a psychologist, you should be taught, trained, and experienced enough to be able to tell the person's diagnosis and so on just by, doing an extensive examination of them. When I serve as an expert witness, I do a couple of tests, but not to determine the diagnosis, but to more, sometimes the jury would like to see something more objective than just your opinion. So I do it for that. But really, if someone can't do the proper diagnosis without tests, they should hang up their couch. Now, Sidney Powell, she was malingering, and the jury saw that. She couldn't have been so psychotic at the time that she killed her mother that she didn't know right from wrong, because right after she did it, she set up the scene as you were talking about. She tried to make it look like a robbery, like someone broke in. So clearly you can't be that psychotic when you're figuring this out. Plus, she had spoken on the phone to her college, and she tried to pretend that she was her mother. I mean, she was in command of enough of her faculties so that she wasn't not guilty by reason of insanity.
Outstanding analysis. Really, really good point. Dr. Carole Lieberman, the terrorist therapist. Check out her website, expertwitnessforensic.psychiatrist.com. Dr. Carole, quick yes or no to you. Can people in America expect to have Adderall again? Seems like there's a shortage.
Well, I certainly hope so, because we shouldn't be having medications produced by China and other countries. We should be doing all of these things here so we don't have to be dependent.
Excellent point. God bless you, Dr. Carole Lieberman. You are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot. I thank you for joining us. Folks, Open Phone America is coming up right now. Don't go anywhere. 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-4-VALDEZ. We're coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. And welcome. It's hour number 3 of the program. This is where we do Open Phone America, a time, trusted, and tested tradition here on the program. Let me give you the phone number, 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez is the number. And I got to tell you, we talked about a number of things tonight. We talked about the crazy looting that happened in Philadelphia and is really spreading across the country. And I don't mean just looting like in a riot. This is now just organized crime. You've got flash mobs of people, 100 people, 50 people going and just bum rushing these stores, taking everything they can fit in their arms and making a run for it. Absolute craziness. And we also had some discussion on the big news of the day, the inquiry into the impeachment of President Joe Biden, and had some great conversations on that. We've talked about some of the crazy stories that are out there, this satanic cult that was uncovered in cahoots with child sexual assault after they arrested a guy with a gun last year. And that was shocking. Just it seems like the news is getting crazier by the day. And you guys get to weigh in on all of that. I want to get your thoughts on that as well as everything else. And just on a lighter note, right? Listen to this. Today, Friday, as we're moving into Friday, is going to be the last day. Something I didn't even know this was going on anymore, but it's the last day for DVD by mail service from Netflix. They are now out of the DVD in the mail game. Now, I don't know about you. I had no idea that Netflix was still in that business. So that was a shocker for me. But that's where we're at. Now, we have a number of calls on hold. I'm going to get to you guys in a moment. South Carolina, California, Montana, and more coming in. I love it when people chime in. Florida, get jumping in on the line. If there's an open line, give us a call, 833-482-5337, and let your voice be heard. Now, there's a few other stories I wanted to get into because the State Department's issuing a warning over Chinese misinformation operations. Okay. I mean, this is a constant for them, right? This is just what happens. Here's another interesting story talking about China. A Florida teacher and Disney employees are among 219 that were arrested in a human trafficking operation. Now, the last time I saw a headline like this, it also included Disney employees. And I'm wondering, Disney might need to do a better job making sure that people that are involved in child trafficking don't end up working for them. But again, this human trafficking operation earlier this month was busted up, and it led to the arrest of 219 people, including people in the country illegally. Oh, lo and behold. So, you know, they're coming here. They're new Americans, American dream. Obviously, they're here. They're trafficking children. I've been saying this time and again. And again, it's not just me saying it. There's a lot of people saying it. People need to really realize the big business that's going on at the border is human smuggling. That's the big business. And the fact that our government is doing nothing to stop it tells me that they're involved in the big business of human smuggling. Part of that is the trafficking of children, smuggling them into the country, and then getting them to work in chicken plants, in other places, doing the overnight shift because they have no parents in this country. The other day, Mr. Hinton tells me during a break about this kid, I don't know how old he was, maybe 12 or 14, that lost a hand or got his hand jammed up in one of these machines that mechanically separate chicken. And I told him during the break, I said, I bet you that kid's in the country illegally. He probably just got here, has no parents. He's working an overnight shift because he's being trafficked. They brought him from where he was to come here to work as a slave. This is happening. It's happening now. And I don't hear our president talk about it. I don't hear anybody talking about it. It makes me question, who are the real domestic terrorists? Is it the parents going to the school boards? Is it the radical traditional Catholics that go to Latin Mass? Or is it every last idiot politician that turns a blind eye to this stuff? I vote for them. I say Washington is the place that's filled with domestic terrorists. Anyway, back to this story. So where did I leave off? Human trafficking, yada, yada, yada. Somebody who was in the country illegally, and they caught, 219 people, a high school teacher, 3 Disney employees, and as of the announcement that was earlier today, of 119 prostitutes that were also arrested during the operation, 21 were victims of human trafficking. And those are the young ones. Those are the girls that are coming in. that if they're too young, they'll keep them sequestered somewhere. But if they're old enough, they'll put some lipstick on them and put them on the street and force them to do what they do. It's horrible. 2 of the suspects that were charged were both in the U.S. illegally, as far as they know. And that's because they didn't catch the rest. Freddy Escalona, 30 years old, and Maria Guzman were charged with human trafficking and deriving proceeds from prostitution. Escalona, police said, lent money to a victim to fix her car. After she wasn't able to pay him back, he allegedly forced her into prostitution. When Escalona drove the victim to the undercover location, he was taken into custody and told detectives he had several females that he worked or who paid him to transport them and keep them safe. So he was the muscle, the pimp and the muscle. Crazy. Let's see. Guzman also allegedly trafficked 2 victims from a hotel in Orlando, setting up their quote-unquote dates and profiting from the money that they made. So these girls are not even really prostituting themselves. They're making money, and it goes straight to the pimp because they're forced labor. They're slaves, sex slaves. Absolutely crazy. Investigators charged a total of 44 felonies, 242 misdemeanors as part of this operation. I got to tell you, 35 of these people are suspected to be in the country illegally and are from the countries of Cuba, Chile, Venezuela, Mexico, Guatemala, Colombia, or the Bahamas. Joe Biden just approved 379,000 work permits for people coming in from Venezuela, a total of 500,000 because it's the second time they're doing it. What is wrong with this picture? How is it that 5 people, right of center on talk radio and on television are clamoring about this, and the rest of America is clueless as to what's going on? I think it's about time that we hold everybody accountable. If people aren't really telling the truth about what's happening at the border, then we're going to have to make sure that people hear the truth, because this is unacceptable. It really is. I mean, this is not the first time this has happened. It keeps happening and it keeps happening. It's about time that we do something. And again, kudos to Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd. This guy's terrific. I wish we had audio of this press conference because he's strong, he's stern, and he's funny as hell when he gives these things, because he always makes these like punny type of comments. But I got to tell you, this stuff, it shouldn't happen. This isn't the type of thing that should happen, just like looting shouldn't happen. Anyway, I'm getting off my soapbox. We're going to get to your calls right now. Let's go to the calls. Let's see here. Hold on. Let's go to John, Vero Beach, Florida, WTTB. This happened in Florida. John, did you hear about what's going on here with this big case, this human trafficking ring?
Yes, and it all dials into a huge cycle. We should be sending every one of the illegals, line the buses up for miles, and send every one of them to Philadelphia, Chicago, New York, and New Jersey. All these bastions of these so-called
sanctuary cities, sanctuary states.
Cities, yes. Especially now that we're entering into an election cycle, or we're in one. It's hard to draw a line there, but what better time now to flood those areas, every one of them, not just one or 50 or 100 or 200. All the thousands, send them all to those states. And why not California? Because California is already rigged with all kinds of Marxist-leaning laws, to skirt around the Constitution.
John, I think, first of all, I think somebody's taking you up on your advice, because I think it's happening. I was on 8th Avenue and 53rd Street, I don't know, two and a half hours ago, maybe 3 hours ago. And I can tell you that it looks like a different city. The cops, there was a lot of cops out, but all the cops were doing were taking these motorized mopeds from everybody, and they've got them chained up all over the place. I mean, blocks and blocks and blocks of rows and rows and rows, and as many of as of those that they've taken, I'm getting tongue-tied here, there were still, I don't know, in a 5-minute span where you're waiting for the light to change or whatever across the street, 3 minutes, another 50 or 60 of them fly by you. And again, these people are all wearing masks. It's clear to me they're looking for someone to rob. They're not just hanging out. They're going up and down, up the one way, up the wrong way. Some of them, make a U-turn through the crosswalk and the sidewalk. It's crazy what's going on. And this is on 8th Avenue and 53rd Street in New York City. I got to tell you, the cops have their hands full. They're doing what they got to do. They're outnumbered. This is a massive problem. Mayor Adams is saying he can't have any more illegal aliens, and there's more coming anyway. And we're seeing them coming. Again, the people in this particular ring were all from Central and South America, but we're seeing people from 150 different countries coming across the border. This is not asylum seeking. This is not migrants. This is not people trying to find a better life. This is people who are coming here to exploit a hole in our system, a hole that was made by Joe Biden, John.
Yep. I agree 100%.
Well, thank you for your call, brother. I appreciate you and everybody listening on WTTB, Vero Beach, Florida. I love Florida. I hope to be there really soon. John, thank you, sir. We're going to continue with the rest of your calls and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations, everybody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right? But you're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, we're talking about everything under the sun right now. We've got this big human trafficking arrest that came out of Florida today. We're reacting to the debate last night, the Republican debate, which really was just, I don't know. I don't want to say amateur hour because these are very astute people, but it just didn't seem like the last one. The last one was a little bit better, a little more punchy. I didn't see it was kind of lackluster from my opinion. But let's get your thoughts. Let's go to Sue in Schwenksville, Pennsylvania, WXDE. Sue, go right ahead.
Yeah, so you're right about that, the debate. They made Trump look like an elder statesman, I would have to say.
And honestly, compared to his speech in Michigan yesterday, it was a really, really good speech. Probably one of the best, most presidential, policy-filled speeches I've seen him give in quite a while.
Yeah, he's awesome, And it was, I think they should cut to the chase, spend the money on the fighting against, the campaign against Biden. But that's not what I called about. I was calling to respond to this, of course, the illegal immigration thing. Even though the debate was kind of like a free-for-all, Ramaswamy brings some very interesting things to the table. And one of the things that I caught that he said was he was calling for this birthright citizenship to be altered or changed, the 14th Amendment. And I've been doing some reading here about the 14th Amendment, and the way it's worded, it says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. Now, this doesn't extend to the children of diplomats because they're not under the jurisdiction of the United States. So I was just wondering, I thought it was very brave of him to bring something like that up. And he has a few other things like that kind of, are very ballsy that he brings up. So I was just curious what you think about that.
Well, before I give you my thoughts, I want everybody to hear what he said. This way, we're all on the same page. Listen to this.
You propose, quote, universal deportation for all undocumented immigrants and their children, even if the children are citizens of the United States. Under what legal premise will you expel U.S. citizens?
So the first thing I want to say is I agree with everything. The Republicans on the stage are on the right side of this issue. Militarize the southern border, stop funding sanctuary cities, and end foreign aid to Mexico and Central America to end the incentives to come across. But I do go a step further. You're right about that, Ilya. I favor ending birthright citizenship for the kids of illegal immigrants in this country. Now, the left will howl about the Constitution and the 14th Amendment. The difference between me and them is I've actually read the 14th Amendment. What it says is that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the laws and jurisdiction thereof are citizens. So nobody believes that the kid of a Mexican diplomat in this country enjoys birthright citizenship. Not a judge or legal scholar in this country will disagree with me on that. Well, if the kid of a Mexican diplomat doesn't enjoy birthright citizenship, then neither does the kid of an illegal migrant who broke the law to come here.
So that was Vivek Ramaswamy last night at the debate discussing the 14th Amendment, and he was on with Ilia Calderon because Univision was the other co-sponsor of the debate. And this is exactly what, from my understanding, what the courts have ruled with DACA, saying that, it's not exactly the same story, but it's along those lines where these kids, the ones that came here as children, they fall into that category. And they're saying, no, you can't do that. It's unconstitutional. But however, they keep saying, well, but we're going to keep extending DACA. And it's very difficult because these become emotional things for a lot of people. But the reality is I agree with Ramaswamy, and I agree that you just have to have rule of law. And it's very unpopular to say that because it is unfair, right? If you're 6 years old, 4 years old, and you're dragged across the border with your parents, this is a very unfortunate thing. Or you come and then you're born here, same thing. Then you're like, this is the only country you know, and you might end up serving in the military here. And for someone to say, all right, now you've served in the military and you're getting deported would be very unfortunate. But we have to draw the line somewhere because this is an out-of-control problem. So, again, deportations are a very tricky business, and I'll tell you why. We can't manage the influx of people coming through the border right now. And it's not that we're understaffed, which we are, and we don't have enough immigration judges, which we don't. But it's because there's policies and leaders, I don't want to call him a leader, but people in charge like Joe Biden who are allowing this to happen and making it happen. So, yes, when Trump was around, he was able to shut the border down. I think if you can slow down and doing everything he said, if we can disincentivize people coming across the border, then we can go back to having a secure border, and then we can focus on, starting to extract people from the country by way of deportation. But right now, there's not a shot. There's not a shot that we could actually do this because we don't have the legal apparatus and we don't have the manpower because they're all at the border and they've all become travel agents instead of border agents, getting people to the next sanctuary city, their next destination on the itinerary. And it's very unfortunate, Sue. Thanks for your call. Folks, we're coming right back to the rest of your calls and more. 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. It's America at Night with me, Rich Valdez, and this is Open Phone America.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So get this. A few weeks ago, there was a tragic story. I did not cover it because I really don't like to talk about these things. When little kids die, I have a tough time getting through it, honestly. But they were in a daycare that was run, and I think it was in the Bronx. And the kids died, 2 kids, and a third one was hospitalized because of fentanyl poisoning. And the question was, how did the fentanyl get there? Well, it turned out the woman who ran the daycare, her boyfriend, is a drug dealer, or a suspected drug dealer, and he was just arrested in Mexico in Sinaloa, and he's on the run, and I think they just finally caught up to him. But fentanyl in New York City, big deal. And it's not just New York City, it's all over the place. But there's a story today. Let me see if I find it right here. Listen to this, CBS News. Investigators say they uncovered yet another drug mill in the Bronx, again involving fentanyl. This one was located less than a mile away from the daycare where several children were exposed to fentanyl, causing the death of the toddler. Detectives Juan Gabriel Herrera Vargas rode the subway on Tuesday with a suitcase of fentanyl. He got off at Kingsbridge Road in the Bronx, started walking towards an apartment, but they stopped him on the way. The DEA agents seized more than 40 pounds of fentanyl, much of it in a suitcase. So this guy's transporting fentanyl on the subway. And it makes you think, if little kids that are coming in contact with this, not taking it, just coming in contact with it, are dying from it, imagine what's going to happen to people on the subway that may accidentally get in touch with this stuff. Crazy stuff. Later that night, the DEA agents followed him, and they saw him leave an apartment in the building on Kingsbridge Road, rather, and with another suitcase. They then arrested Mr. Herrera Vargas and said that they found even more drugs in that bag. Crazy stuff, right? Fentanyl is all over the place. Going back to your calls, because it's a busy night tonight, lots to discuss. Let's see here. What state did we leave off in? Let's go to Paul, Zanesville, Ohio, WHIZ.
Hey,
Paul.
good evening, Rich. I hope I can articulate this well enough so that I don't sound too crazy. But have you ever heard of guerrilla warfare? Well,
yes.
I have in my history books, and I just happened to think about that. It popped into my head tonight when you was talking about the mopeds in the streets, riding with masks and just, acting all crazy and stuff. But this kind of looks like maybe it could be like in the early stages of like guerrilla warfare. I mean, look at all the illegal immigrants that we're getting in. We don't know what they're up to. Right now they might not be shooting at you, but like you just said, look at the fentanyl on the streets and so forth. We don't know what these people are bringing in. So I just think that if you look up guerrilla warfare, it kind of matches what I'm saying, and it popped into my head because I've read my history books and so forth. But
it's a good point.
and
I just want to say something to that, Paul. When I was in Manhattan today on 8th Avenue, I wanted to point out something that I thought was interesting. In addition to the people on the mopeds who seemed to me, from what I could see, many of them were wearing masks, so you couldn't tell. But from their mannerisms, they looked like they were very American, right? These were people from New York, that New York swag, the way they walked. There were also tons and tons of what appeared to be people hailing from Central and South America. Now, I don't know their legal status in this country or not. I'm not going to profile them, but I will say they were all working, making deliveries on bicycles. All of them. I mean, probably 80. Every time I stopped at a light, they have their own lane. It's a huge bike lane. And I was just like, wow, look at that. So all these people here that didn't appear to speak English, I heard them speaking in Spanish. They're all doing Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub, making these food deliveries. And then you have all these other people who were speaking in English, hanging out. Some of them had their masks pulled down. And these were all American people, people that spoke English. And I thought, what is going on here? You've got these people that are coming, trekking from wherever, that some of them are really coming to work, and they're working hard. They're grinding, and they're hustling on these bicycles, delivering food. And then you have these people that are born here with every opportunity in the world, and they're sitting there just hanging out, doing nothing, riding these illegal mopeds that are going to get confiscated, or they're going to run away from the cops, and in my opinion, clearly up to no good. And it was just an interesting dichotomy, if you will, of just looking at what happened in this once great city. Paul, go right ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I understand what you're saying, and maybe it is, like our young people and things like that rebelling from their neighborhoods because they live in such a trashy neighborhood. Who knows the reasons why? I think I know one reason why is because it's called Democrats. But, there is a problem. And it's pretty obvious. Now, I know there's a lot of foreigners that want to come here and work. I'm friends with a lot of them. But it just seems to me like the Democrats don't care, and you're going to keep getting more and more of this kind of stuff, if you don't clamp down and stop this. I mean, it's just crazy what they're doing in these stores and everything. So, thank you.
You're welcome, Paul. And listen, I agree with you 100%. If we don't put an end to people doing bad things, what happened in Philly, what happened in San Francisco, what's continuing to happen in New York City, it's going to keep happening. People are going to continue to just willfully violate the law and make public safety something that is non-existent just because they feel like doing it. Absolute insanity. Let's go to Rodney, South Charleston, West Virginia. WCHS. Rodney, you're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Yes, sir. I want to say I only listen to programs like yours where I know I can get accurate news. And I heard one report, which I have no doubt that it's accurate. Biden is already planning to set up the illegals where they can vote. I don't know if you've heard that or not, but I believe it. They vote Democrat. And that is the bottom line as why he's letting all these illegals in violation of the Constitution into the United States. But they will vote Democrat, and he's going to set them up to be able to do so at some point. And that's a serious problem.
Well, Rodney, let me jump in here. I agree that Biden has something up his sleeve. What it is, I don't know. I'll say this. I know that Barack Obama was constantly hammering away this idea that they popularized the term a pathway to citizenship. They constantly talked about a pathway to citizenship. And I always thought it was funny because I've met many an immigrant, both Hispanic immigrants from a lot of places. And not every immigrant that comes to the United States is eager to become a citizen. Many are, but not all of them. And mainly because they're eager to work, and they can work with a green card. They can work as a permanent resident alien. And if you're a resident of the country, you pay your taxes, you do everything but vote. It's one of those few interesting benefits that you get as a citizen. And many people, and still today, I'd say a third of our population is disinterested in voting. They just don't care. They don't participate in the process. So for Biden to pick up the Obama mantle and create a pathway to citizenship, I think it's going to prove difficult. One, he won't be able to pull it off right now. It won't get through the House because of the majority that we have, number one, thank God. But number two, it's going to be a difficult task overall because the timing's off. If they would have tried this at a different time where people felt like, if they had enough political power to do it at the time that everybody and their mother was angry with Trump because he'd put kids in cages, according to the media, that might have been the time to do it. When AOC ran down to Texas and had her face in her hands and she was crying at the wall, at the fence there, that may have been the time where sympathy was going in their direction because they were creating that narrative. But right now, nobody's in favor of illegal immigration. Nobody. I haven't bumped into anybody that's saying, well, these people have to, maybe one or two clowns, but most people, left, right, center, they're like, what's happening is out of control. And so I don't believe that there's going to be the political will to give them citizenship. Without citizenship, you can't vote for president. Now, some places, New York City tried this. They tried to allow people saying, look, their kids go to school. They should be able to vote in the school board. They should be able to vote for their city councilman. They're members of the community, and therefore they should be able to vote. And they put together a resolution. And before, or it might have passed, or right when it was about to pass, the Republican Party in New York sued them and won in court, where they said this is absolutely against the Constitution of the state of New York, let alone the federal Constitution. So I feel like they can try, and they will continue to try. And it may take them a long time, and they're going to need both houses in Congress, and they're going to need the White House, and they're going to need maybe another judge, if they can get one, to try to swing the vote that way once it gets up to the Supreme Court, because they're going to sue eventually. But I think you're right that they want that to happen. But the bigger caveat for me here is people just being in your district will give your district more in apportionment. And I think this is a big part of what they're doing. The other, I think, part of this is that many people may say, when I came here, Biden was president, and that's why I'm going to vote as a Democrat. Many might. But I got to tell you, we saw it happen in South Texas with the election of Mayra Flores. We see it all over the place. Many Hispanics embrace faith and family values and hard work, and they're coming here to work. And whether they're coming illegally or not is of course, debatable. But what isn't is culture. And I don't believe, even if they start off as Democrats, they're going to stay as Democrats, because all I do is see people coming from different Hispanic cultures ultimately saying, this isn't what we do. This isn't how we were raised. It's not how our families live. And it's a very unnatural thing to see what's happening in the political left in our country. And even today I went to a fundraising event for a New York City Council person. And before I did that, I stopped off for dinner with some friends, old friends, very old friends. I've known them 20 years plus. But some of the comments they were giving me they were saying, keep doing what you're doing. Keep talking about what you're talking about. And these are all Hispanics that I grew up with. And they're telling me, what's happening in our country is bad. So I see a shift that the Democrat Party for a long time had a stronghold on Hispanics and African Americans as well. And I see a lot of African American men are saying, you know what, I want to make money. And we made money with Trump, and we're not making money now. So I don't know that they're going to be that successful in making people vote, because I just don't think it's going to happen. And I think they're going to be surprised as to what happens with a lot of people once they get a taste of the real American dream. They start making some money. They're not going to want their kids wearing dresses. I guess that's the best way to put it. Rodney, thanks for your call. Big shout out to WCHS. I'm going to take a quick pause here, come back to your calls. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
All right, America, we're starting the final segment, speed round now, even though we have another segment to go, because we've got a lot of people that want to sound off on the issues of the day. Let's go to Margaret. She's calling from Burlington, Vermont, WVMT. Go right ahead.
Hi, Rick. Thanks for your show.
Thank you.
Rick, my pleasure. When we moved here into this city, they asked for proof of residence with a stamped address, someone who sent us a letter or a bill or something, and that was sufficient for putting us on the voter registration. Now, if that's all that's needed, how many places in the country ask for proof of citizenship before you register to vote?
This is a very good question. Now, I can tell you, I know when I did my license and whatever, I think I did it through high school, and I took driver's ed in my junior year, and I had to bring in a copy. In order to get my permit, I had to bring in a copy of my birth certificate and Social Security card. And in New Jersey, it's very complicated. But what I can say is you're right, and that's a thing. And this is why people that are in a state like Pennsylvania, for example, where, what's his name? Wolf? Is that his name? Governor Wolf? I hope I'm getting that right. He just announced that they're going to do universal registration. Anybody with a license is going to be given the chance to register or is going to automatically be registered, because that's going to increase democracy. These things need to be stopped. And when people say, they call this show and they go, I don't know what to do. What do we do? What you do is save your shekels and sue. And if you can't put the lawsuit together by finding a local lawyer that you have a relationship with, or somebody in your political circle can connect you with, there are big organizations out there, like I think it's called Liberty Legal, America First Legal. They're great. They're constantly suing people. There's a bunch of legal organizations that are fighting on behalf of America. And I would recommend to anybody that's listening right now, especially if you're in Pennsylvania, you need to be suing the governor. The more lawsuits, the better. Not everyone will get through, but you've got to try, because things like this have to be stopped. And Margaret, you're right. This would be unconstitutional if they actually do go and vote, but it adds to the voter rolls. And once you show up to vote, most places don't even ask for ID. And even if you had ID, if you're already on there and you're registered and you have a driver's license, because you're allowed to have a driver's license, you can go right ahead and vote. And this has been a very slow-moving process. So you're right to our last caller who was saying that that's their plan. Of course it's their plan. I don't believe that it's going to happen as quickly as they'd like, but that doesn't mean they won't try to use a backdoor approach. And this is why we have to remain ever vigilant. because you're spot on. Not every place is going to be checking a birth certificate to make sure that you were born in the United States. Perhaps every DMV does. I can tell you that was my experience, but I don't know if that's the experience everywhere else. Margaret, good point. We're going to get to the rest of your calls straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, it's the speed round. You got to keep it to 30 seconds to make sure we get everybody in. Joyce, Great Falls, Montana, KQDI. Joyce, welcome.
Oh, welcome. First-time caller.
Oh, yay.
Talk about the border. Yes, Great Falls, beautiful place. We love it here. The border. These people, have nothing. They're getting like $2,000 a month, for assistance and all that. And they are around here. I mean, I talked to one and said, we get $2,000 a month. Well, if they keep doing that, it's going to be like the welfare state, just like welfare.
I think you're right. You're 100% right. If we continue to give out money to everybody that's coming across, where's this money coming from? Number one, it's our tax dollars. And number two, we're already borrowing $2 trillion to pay the interest on the debt we have because we're $33 trillion in debt. It's an unsustainable situation. It has to stop. I can't see how Biden or any Democrat gets elected if people really look at the issues. Excellent point, Joyce. Great Falls, Montana. Beautiful place. I'd love to visit. Big shout out to KQDI. Let's continue. Let's go to Al, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN. Go right ahead quickly.
Thanks, Rich, for taking my call. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the Biden administration's proctology audio engineers. They must be working overtime to mic up all these cranial rectal idiots for the
clearly they're talking out of their rear end, right?
Yes.
100%. I think you're spot on with that, Al, and I appreciate your call. And I think you're right. Whether it's the impeachment inquiry or the border policy or whatever disaster they've got up their sleeve, these guys are destroying America. I'm hoping that you're making America better in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And thank you to everybody listening on WRNN. As we continue, we go to Jim, Harvard, Illinois, WGN. Go right ahead, Jim.
Hey, Rich, real quick. The Biden investigation, he uses these aliases, in his internet, his communication to Hunter, and he used the alias JRB, and, those are his initials.
Yeah.
But the weird one is the word where after that, Junior Beware.
Yeah, you're right. J.R. Beware. That's so interesting. I saw that one. He had like 3 or 4 of those aliases. And again, the fact that Americans are not like shocked that imagine if Trump had an alias to be a PR person years ago, but he didn't have an alias as president. I call him El Trumpito, but I mean, he was always Trump. And I use that as the standard. These people are out of control, Jim. Thanks for the call. Big shout out to WGN. And a big shout out to Mitchell, South Dakota, to Rob and Robert in Charleston. I'm sorry I didn't get to you. The music is kicking me out. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night and God bless. We'll be back tomorrow with my replay of President Trump's interview and Dinesh D'Souza.